The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hi everybody, it's Mark Kelly here, co-founder and Chief Customer Officer at Alldus International. As part of our ServiceNow series, I'm very happy to welcome John Cullom. John is the CEO and founder of Northcraft Analytics, and he's going to join us for the next 15 to 20 minutes today. Tell us a little bit about his journey to now, some of the work that he and the team are doing at Northcraft Analytics, and some of the advice that he's learned along the way, and how we can maybe add some value into the community as well from our conversation. John, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me on the pod. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Brilliant, John. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about your journey to now, how you got into the world of ServiceNow, and a little bit for people that don't actually know much about Northcraft Analytics. Tell us a little bit more.
Right. So Northcraft Analytics itself is focused on bringing really line of business analytical capabilities to the IT function, right? So the IT has been in the business of bringing business intelligence and AI/ML and all of that great information to optimize line of business decisions. But when it comes to bringing those kind of management practices and handling of their own internal data, they're sometimes last in line, right? So what we've really focused on is being that BI department for the IT function itself. It's been a really productive place for us to be, and we found ourselves working with some great clients along the way and find some real novel insights.
Tell us a little bit about your current role. CEO can be so many different things, and some of the responsibilities that you have.
Right. So beyond beyond sort of the administration of the business itself, we develop a lot of what the message is and the marketing around what we can do. But I often find myself as sort of the chief architect around the AI/ML space, really seeking out the kind of use cases that produce value in the wild. My own path here came through sort of corporate finance and ops, and then consulting, really around airlines and logistics in the first place. It had a lot of bearing on the IT space. So, being able to see how large organizations make small decisions and millions of them, and how information can inform those decisions and sometimes automate them as well. That's an experience that kind of brought me to bear in IT. And ServiceNow as an application has been really one of the pillars of the data that is used to run that whole space. That's been really powerful, and it's been very interesting to see it grow over time. It's helped us out enormously.
And how did you come into the ServiceNow ecosystem? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So our company was born in the ITSM space. This was back when Remedy was the dominant player, and that was gathering the information all around, running the IT shop. ServiceNow pretty quickly came into the space, and really took a lead role pretty quickly. So, we were able to apply the same kind of library of metrics and visualizations and the decision-oriented reports to the, ServiceNow framework, which is, it sounds like a magic trick. It's not. It's really just falling in love with the data model, learning every kind of nook and cranny, and saying, where do you get this information to build sort of high-value metrics about, task flow and those kind of reports and KPIs that executives want to see and are used to run the operational business as well. That's it's been a path literally from line of business at large organizations, building a company in the ITSM space, and ServiceNow walked into it in a pretty dominant fashion.
When you look at the macro trends at the moment and the work that you're doing in that digitalization, tell us about some of the trends that you're seeing, because for a lot of people, we know COVID has fast tracked the adoption. Some of the stuff now started to become table stakes. People are looking to go a little bit further, utilize things on the cloud. Tell us what you're seeing.
Right. So yeah, no, we are seeing a sort of a war for talent. Uh, and people will take different strategies. People will take different strategies in this. A lot have leveraged consulting companies to bring to bear resources that they sort of look at to solve short-term problems, and the spaces that people built up with kind of strategic capabilities that they used to build in-house. I'm seeing a lot of that being supplied with external talent. That introduces a lot of kind of management complications as well. So, in our space, there's a lot of analytics around vendor performance and where bottlenecks arise, maintaining quality of employees within the IT space. But yeah, I mean, sort of short term, I feel like I wouldn't say it's exactly a crisis, but it's um, managing a difficult situation gracefully. Uh, but in the ServiceNow industry itself, what we're seeing is a lot of growth into beyond the ITSM space into functions like HR, ITBM, SecOps. Uh, that's sort of fueled new analytical products for us and pushed us, beyond our ITSM space. Um,
Why do you think people are seeing ServiceNow as the digital platform of choice? Is there any particular reasons that you're seeing that? Because it seems to be going that way.
no, I would agree with that. So I think there's sort of two prongs to that. There is within the ITSM space and kind of the even HR task project. I think that those are all pretty good corollaries to the ITSM space. Within that space itself, ServiceNow was the first really to adopt a cloud first strategy. All of the infrastructure and interface was born to be a SaaS offering that was incredibly effective, and I think their competitors in that space are having a hard time making that transformation because they do have one foot in the old world, and so do their existing customers. ServiceNow is in a great place to continue with their architecture to satisfy existing customers and acquire new ones. But I would say like beyond the ITSM space, ServiceNow has a very universalifiable data model, which it really is a valid application to any task that involves workflow, right? So that expands the universe, probably beyond what ServiceNow itself can build. But if you think about, functions within, a variety of industries, workflow is the name of the game. So, we've seen in kind of telecom partners building out sort of a quote to cash workflow where, a lot of the order generation workflow is managed in ServiceNow. The sales and delivery is optimized in workflow, and then the billing management for telecom. Those are the applications that they built really to hang the whole industry on, right? That kind of transaction volume is theirs, but ServiceNow can integrate, right? And so where it fits in the workflow chain, it is the only viable, I don't want to, I think I can safely say that, the only viable generic tool that can fit into that kind of space. And right now, industries, I mean, and literally all service industries are littered with homegrown applications or applications built on small companies that are at least suboptimal, if not on the edge of obsolescence. And I do think that's going to be an enormous area of growth for ServiceNow. It will rely on partners that have, the subject matter expertise in those specific functions and industries. The more they embrace that, the faster that growth will go. And, it's a virtuous cycle too, right? When that becomes the application building platform of choice universally, and that becomes well known, the talent pool will continue to grow and to grow, and it will, basically you're looking at something that says, a career in IT is a career in ServiceNow. So that's if everything goes right. With a lot of missteps, it's just, dominating the common functions that are universal to all organizations.
Yeah, I think it going into IT, there's such a huge demand it's particularly in the US that you're going to be in a good place. Anyway, Northcraft has done so well working with the platform ServiceNow. Tell us why you feel it's a good fit.
Yeah, well, for us, it's it's an easy story to tell. It fits in with our approach. What we've done is to try to come up with a generic analytics delivery model that will say, for any data source within IT, our platform is a foundation that you can build on for decades and decades, right? So, and that's, literally we have done it for decades and decades. And, the future out there really only points to, competitors in individual pieces of the analytics stack. But there's, vendor risk for, each one of those smaller guys to get gobbled up. We saw Tableau get gobbled up as a presentation layer by Salesforce. Other things in the chain that might be, arguably best of breed, which I'm not going to necessarily accept that, but Snowflake and Corda, et cetera. They may pick off a little analytical demand from Microsoft, but Microsoft's not going anywhere, and their strategic focus is on moving data from the operational application layer to presentation and analytics and valuable analytical use cases out of that. When you go with that generic approach that's broadly applicable, lots of good things happen. And ServiceNow is fundamentally that same kind of thing. So why we like it personally is, that model works when you're bringing it to an organization. It has the ability to integrate large amounts of transactional, both the operations and the data into a single place, right? And so when we turn loose analytics on that, a lot of our a lot of what our magic sauce is that we're able to handle big data with grace, so that even over multi-year trends, you can get sub-second response and slice and dice and follow analytics at the speed of thought. But we also find that a lot of AI ML use cases come from data at the edge of areas and combining them, right? So when we, what we're often looking to do is, the metaphor we typically use is something like prevent heart attacks, right? So we look for, whether that's on infrastructure or within a process, we look for something that is the heartbeat, that's saying like, how am I doing? Even when those vital signs are positive, we want to know those because we can correlate them with negative events. We can talk about just sort of a, exploratory use case in the HR space. We're working a lot with the HR task management and the centers of excellence in HR, but we're also getting information about turnover from human capital management systems, and that integration and being able to bring that data together, whether it's in ServiceNow, if that's the case, it makes it way easier for us. But we can also integrate that data from alternate systems to do things like predicting turnover based on, how does reducing onboarding time, contribute to the fact that an employee turns over later? Things that are initially considered uncorrelated. How do we predict that type of heart attack, right? So ServiceNow is doing its job, and it's expanding out across the organization, is unlocking other value-added AI/ML use cases for us, and it really makes the data job easier.
And it's just, John, it's just that one insight where it's like if you can help with this onboarding, you will have a 10 or 15% impact on churn, for example. Just that wins it, those moments that matter. That's just really, really key. John, if I look at your kind of implementations and your experience, tell us about some of the things you've learned over the years for people listening in.
The impulse that sort of founded the company and was sort of just surprising to me in my career in general is around the power of analytics. And this started even in my first job that I ever worked in a corporation. I was collecting phone bills, right? But we had a dashboard at the end of every day, and there were 3 metrics that we were expected to improve. There was, there was the amount of money we brought in, the number of service upgrades that we made to these people, and number of calls in the night, right? And if you were top 3 in all 3, you got a steak dinner, right? So nice thing about that, though, is not necessarily a pleasant job, but what was very clear was what I was supposed to do, right? Analytics communicated what the strategic goals were for me and how I contributed to the company. I knew what I was supposed to do, and then it was very clear to me, right? My fundamental belief is that everybody wants to do a good job, right? There are occasionally a malingerer, but analytics are the means for executives to communicate the strategy and how the individual employees contribute to the achievement of strategic goals. When they're properly structured, people know exactly what they're supposed to do, and when they do it, the organization moves forward. And I've seen so many companies get muddled, either A, not have a strategy, B, not be able to turn that into quantifiable goals, and C, not wanting to communicate that to line level employees. And there is, I don't want to say there's no reason for it. There are probably lots of good reasons for it, but when everybody rows in the same direction, it's amazing what you can achieve, and everybody is much happier doing what they do, right? And that we can bring those kind of models to IT, we love it, right? So how many brilliant engineers do you know that grumble about management or don't know what they're doing or why this project is important? How many CIOs do you find get excluded from the executive table because they can't communicate the business value of what they're doing? And our adage about it is, IT is in the business of performing magic, and we speak in the language of engineers. And so those miracles they're often ignored. So when we can communicate these things into quantifiable business value, the achievements of IT, how many strategic programs are there at an organization that does not either involve a technical component or is completely a technical capability that it's bringing forward, right? And too long there's been grumbling about IT not being strategic, which I find ludicrous. The definition of who's going to win in the industry is, I would say, 80% who can acquire the technical talent and supply it, right? They're fighting with people like us, right? We're buying up all the best people that we can and selling them back to those companies. Those companies have to fight us and make an aggressive fight for talent. These are strategic functions that are not going away. For instance, I think we were talking a little bit about how to build ServiceNow teams. You can rely on people like us to build those teams, but do you really want to say it is a temporary capability that I need to understand and map and optimize workflows and build applications to support those? That sounds like an ongoing strategic competitive advantage if you can build it in your own organization, and it speeds time to value. But we're happy to supply all along the way.
John, tell us a little bit about the future. Where are we seeing the platform going?
I do see, so from, from a functional space, I think let's say in the next decade, I do think it is trying to make ServiceNow that universal platform for building workflow applications within an organization. I think probably along the way, the things that will facilitate that is, use of industry-specific partners, but also picking the battles properly, right? So ServiceNow has, enormous talent in engineering, enormous talent in sales, but they've got to dedicate those scarce resources to what ServiceNow does well, which is workflow, right? When it comes to, data acquisition processes such as monitoring or even search capabilities, things like that. I will even say analytics. Why bother? But performance analytics is the right tool for many jobs. So I'm not here. I'm here to praise Caesar, not to bury him. But where they have their strengths, the entire context of workflow is a pretty large battlefield to win. Being able to integrate with those other spaces, such as, say monitoring that generates enormous amounts of data, events and alerts flowing in makes sense. Containing the state of data that says, every minute, how's my server doing? Heartbeat, heartbeat, heartbeat. That is not their space, right? But how do I integrate and make use of that information, even in a temporary basis that will overwhelm a transactional machine? That is, a good space for another cutting edge application. In terms of, analytics, handling big data and AI and ML and all of those things with grace, that's something that is, a Microsoft or Amazon or, whatever those stacks are going to be. That's $100 billion investments. That's not where ServiceNow wants to spend their $100 billion, So, what fights it's going to fight, how to partner with individuals within micro industries and functions, and then how to partner with larger software organizations. Compatibility is a key, right? And picking its partners properly. It's done a good job with that. I see it playing well and integrating and making a lot of efforts there, which is, it's a change that software companies make with time and wisdom, and ServiceNow is really acquiring all that. So.
Yeah, great answer. Final, from a previous guest, what advice would you offer to your younger self getting into this world?
Younger me was very concerned about what path I was going to take, what decision I would make. And if I make this decision, it's going to exclude all others. And so each individual, life decision that you make becomes somewhat overwhelming, right? And so, what we generally find is, life's a little bit longer than we thought, and the world is a lot more interesting than we would initially have thought. The paths that we take, sometimes they aren't necessarily decided, but take them seriously, right? And so this journey has been absolutely fascinating. Learning what large organizations do, how to apply statistics, one of my most initially loathed subjects within college, I find contains multitudes and saves people, man years of effort and unpleasantness, and unlocks billions of dollars of value. Who'd have thought it, right? So whatever path you take, dedicate yourself to it. Don't do anything halfway, but you don't need to pick the best decision. Just pick it and pick it hard. So.
That's good advice. John Cullom, CEO of Northcraft Analytics, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, Mark, absolutely my pleasure. And, continue looking forward to continue talking to you in the future.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.